Hi, I'm Peter Reinhardt, and welcome to Pizza Talk. I'm very excited about today's episode. We've been talking about this one, planning it for a while, and we have the Pizza Yodis back, Brian Spangler and John Arena, and we're adding to our Pizza Yodi panel today with Adam Kuban, who many of you know for years and years as the voice of Slice New York, of Serious Eats, and those of you who are lucky enough to live anywhere near him also know about his pop-up bar pizza, Margot's Pizza. Is it Margot's Pizza? Is that what you call Margot's Pizzeria or Margot's Pizza, Adam?
Margot's Pizza.
Margot's Pizza, which
Yep.
is really his tribute pizzas back to an era that this show today is all about, which is, depending on where you grew up and what you called it, bar pizza, parlor pizza, tavern pizza. Everybody has their own reference points on this. So what we're going to do is talk for a few minutes with all three of our Yodis today about this era, because this style is coming back big time, and we think maybe a great possibility it could be the next big trend now that Detroit style and Roman style have all had their moment in the sun. We're looping back around to a time where many of us have sort of a nostalgic connection. So Brian, actually, you're the one who triggered this whole episode, so I'm going to let you sort of get the ball rolling on this, because you just are on fire with this style.
I'm in love with it. So being from Detroit, right? So I used to go to Buddy's on the way to Detroit Tiger games, and we just called it pan pie, right? We didn't call it Detroit style pizza.
Uh-huh.
We just called it like pan pie, and there was, like Detroit has a huge history of pizza. We had Little Caesars was out of Michigan. We had Domino's is out of Michigan, right?
That's right. Yeah. Most people don't realize what a major influence the Detroit area has been on the overall pizza world.
Right. So like going to when we were going to like a Tiger game, it would be like we get stopped by Buddies and get a pan pie. We just call it pan pie. But in '76, my father got a 2-year gig in San Jose, and I was introduced to this parlor style, what I call parlor style, which I think is an influence from the bar style, tavern style of New Jersey and Chicago. And I'm guesstimating. I don't really.
Yeah.
I'd love to know more history about this. But so when I get to San Jose in '76, then it's like there's pipe organs and silent movies and video games, and it's fantasy land, but it's like this crackery crust, kind of bubbly. It's like there's a lamination going on there.
So this notion of parlor, like a pizza parlor, which was a phrase we don't hear that often anymore, but that was a pretty common phrase back then. This kind of connects with this style.
Well, the pizza parlor means like family. Means family. To me, like, pizza parlor means family. So when I hear bar style and I hear tavern style, it means bar, right? Parlor means family.
I see.
So
yeah.
that, for me, and I've been to Star, and I've been to Vito and Nick's, and I know Vito and Nick's started off as a tavern initially, and after Prohibition had ended, then they, started introducing pizza to keep.
Where was this, Vito and Nick's?
Vito and Nick's in Chicago.
In Chicago, okay. So there's the Chicago version of it. And then, of course, Adam and I, we had a conversation a few years ago when you were just getting Margot's kind of going as a pop-up. And this is where I sort of started hearing about the revival of this style for the first time. And there was a place you cited in Jersey, wasn't it? That was sort of the reference point, or your sort of iconic version that triggered your passion for it.
Yes. So for bar style, I always blab about this. I'm very careful to call mine bar style or bar pizza because there's a few places here out on the East Coast that serve versions of this. Now, the South Shore of Massachusetts, it's a huge hotbed of bar pizza. And it's slightly different from the stuff I make, which is influenced by New Jersey style bar pie or bar pizza. Or my other big influence is the Colony Grill in Stamford, Connecticut. Star and Colony are very thin, whereas the South Shore bar pies, I think, are a little thicker. The one thing that unites them all, though, as they're all cooked in a pan, they're all started, or at least they're started in a pan. All the ones here around the East Coast started in a pan. Once they set up and the crust is firm enough to pull, to stand on its own, they're pulled from the pan and then flashed on the hearth of usually a deck oven. Now, there are some places that do it completely in impinger ovens, but to me, flashing it on the deck kind of gives it this, I wouldn't say intangible because it's inherently tangible because you can feel it, but it gives it this very almost indescribable texture that I feel you miss doing it all in the pan.
Interesting. So
yeah,
that's complexity to the whole experience.
Yeah, the ones here, so my two big influences were Star Tavern in New Jersey, in Orange, New Jersey, and Colony Grill, which started in Stamford but is now franchising, has several locations.
Oh, really? Yeah, we'll probably see more of them now that the style is sort of like caught fire again. Yeah. John, you at Metro Pizza, you pay tribute to a lot of styles, the styles of many regions. Are you doing a pizza, anything like that already, or would you have plans to bring that on?
We're definitely getting ready to. It's bar pizza. The phrase bar pizza or tavern pizza, it's just like every other phrase in the pizza world. It's which tavern, which bar, whose grandma. Everybody's got their own interpretation. Whether it's regional, it's not even, you can't even say it's regional. It's from block to block, or could be on the same street, two vastly different methods and techniques. Yeah. But I think really, when we talk about tavern pizza or bar pizza, by nature, there's got to be simplicity. It's got to be a pretty easy process because it was started out in bars. It wasn't the focal point. The focal point, the purpose of the pizza was to get people in there to buy drinks.
Yep.
So so we want to keep that simple. And Brian, of course, touched on something really important, that parlor pizza, using that phrase, I think, is more welcoming, more family oriented. So I really got exposed to this style of pizza in two different ways. The first was, even though my family owned a pizzeria, my very first pizza memory was pizza in a bar when I was 4 years old. And I remember distinctly, and I can track the time because my aunt lived in an apartment above a bar. And we went to visit her, and my mom and my aunt and I went to have pizza. And she moved out of there when I was 5. So I know I was 4 years old when this took place. And we went into this bar, and I was, it was dark and mysterious and smelled like beer, like old beer. And we got a pizza, and even though my family owned pizzerias, that's my first pizza memory, was the smell of that pizza and biting into it and burning the roof of my mouth.
Right. Yeah, we all have that memory. I think we all started.
It smelled so good. It was like I couldn't wait to take a bite. And I just grabbed, this little kid, I just grabbed it and bit into it and burned my mouth. But it didn't turn me off to it. And so I always made a distinction between pizzeria pizza and bar pizza or tavern pizza. Uh-huh. And then that same aunt, shortly afterwards, moved to Colorado. And when I was a kid, I went to visit her in Colorado, and they had a Shakey's there.
Yep.
And Shakey's to me was like the definitive parlor pizza.
Well, let's talk about Shakey's for a second. Then Brian had mentioned too that was kind of a reference point for him. Adam, how about you? Is Shakey's something that was a part of your experience as you were kind of getting into this style? Did you have a Shakey's anywhere where you were living?
So I think it's kind of indirectly influenced me because a lot of what I'm doing is an amalgamation of different pizzas that I've had throughout the country. Also, my dad was a huge Shakey's fan. I've never personally had Shakey's, but from when I was very little on, he would try to recreate like his pizza at home. It was a very thin, crusted pizza. And I also grew up from Milwaukee, and they have a version of like thin crust. I would say it's probably very similar to Chicago thin crust, but it's a lot of the same ethos there, you know, like very thin, crackery, loaded with cheese and toppings. Like for sausage, it's nice big chunks of fennel-y, garlicky sausage. So that I inherited a love for that. I've never had actual shakies.
But
what
shaky
I chase is like that super thin crust.
There was a time, and many of us who were watching this may not, if you're not, our age, might not realize this, but there was a time when Shakey's was the big name on the block. I mean, Pizza Hut and Shakey's, and they were kind of like the dominant chains, and there were hundreds and hundreds of Shakey's. Now there's only a few. I'm not sure how many are left, if any, but I know that they, were kind of in a reorg mode, and we're trying to bring it back, and this might be the time because, as Brian pointed out, that really was sort of the pizza parlor experience that turned this style of pizza into a family adventure.
Yeah, it really kind of blew up from Shakey's, established in '54 in Sacramento, and then Round Table in 1956. And then it was so popular that then it exploded into other factions, like pizza and pipes. Then you brought in these like brass pipe organs.
Yeah.
You were projecting like, our gang or Little Rascals on, silent movies on a screen. And, and this is the 70s, black and white video games, the early Atari video games, and it's skee ball and all that stuff. It was a family fun. It was like, we couldn't wait till Friday.
It was kind of like a precursor to Chuck E. Cheese, it sounds like.
Exactly.
Yes, of course.
Exactly what it was.
Well, before we run out of time on this segment, I want to talk a little bit about each of your takes on, how you approach then making this pizza as you're bringing this into your own methodology and drawing together from various memories. How are you recreating the experience in your versions? So let me start with Adam, because Adam was the first one that really kind of brought this to my attention a few years ago. And so, Adam, what is it about this, and what's your method for how to do it? Because later on you're gonna actually take us through how the making of one of yours.
Well, mine, like I was saying, I'm kind of chasing. I'm gonna feel like it's an amalgamation of many different styles, or like bits of styles I've loved that I've had throughout the country. So from my dad, I inherited this love of like the crackery, super thin pizza loaded with cheese and a nice chunky sausage. From New York style, though, what I love is that it's crisp and you can fold it. It's not like 100% crackery where it shatters all over.
Right.
I was especially cognizant of that when I was trying to develop this recipe for the New York market, because like New Yorkers don't always take to things that they're not familiar with. So I want to give them a little bit of that familiarity. From Detroit style, I love that Frico edge, and a lot of the bar pizza I've seen around the Northeast, some of it has a little bit of Frico edge, some of it doesn't. But I wanted to have it 100% around. I will point to Star Tavern, because if anybody wants to Google this, they have a very unique pan. They take They take the steel pans or aluminum pans. This is a nesting deep dish pan. This is a 12 by I think 2. But what they do is they cut out most of the edge except for maybe an 8-inch or so portion here, and they use that as a handle. And they start baking it in the pan. They roll it out, rolling it up, build, and then put it in the oven in the pan. And whatever is around the edge that they've left gets that Frico edge. Everything else just kind of slides a little bit. When it's set enough that it'll slip off they go in like a magician and a table, like ripping the tablecloth off, and they pull it back and let that pie sit on the hearth for a while. Wow. Now, I'd always loved going to Star and fighting with people over who gets that little bit of edge, like the 1 or 2 or 1 slice and partial slice that gets that edge. So for mine, I do not cut away the rim, and I just carefully fish it out with a fish turner. But I really wanted that to destroy the edge. So that's kind of
I've
the amalgamation.
Good, Brian.
Yeah, I've heard that some of the old pans were actually cut differently, so that you could actually like wrap the pan so the pizza was sliced. Like it was like almost like a moon, like a half moon shaped pan.
Huh.
So
yeah.
the bottom, but there was no edge on one half of it, so you could like slip it out.
Oh yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. They just, maybe I wasn't super clear. They cut away everything else, but like a little 8-inch section of this rim.
Yep.
So that's their, and then they
Yeah.
pull it away like a magician pulling a tablecloth.
Right.
Wow.
Okay.
All right. So
Yeah.
so
I'm sorry, you were breaking up a little bit there.
yeah, we're having a little bit of the Zoom issue. We'll see if we can resolve that during the break between this segment and the next. But before we break again, John, what's your take on how are you going to execute? And you'll show us this, of course, in your segment. But what's your sort of perspective on how to make the classic bar style pizza?
Like Adam, my take on it is going to be a hybrid. The combination of ideas, discussion that I had with Brian over time about what the texture is supposed to be, and observation. There's a place in New York called Eddie's. Adam, I don't know if you've ever been there. It's in New Hyde Park. That does a
Yeah, Eddie's is.
It's a very thin bar pie, and I've been in his kitchen and talked to the pizza makers, and what they do is they roll the dough out, and then they put it in a very low temperature oven for like 20 minutes and dry it out. And then they stack those up and they use them during the course of the day.
That's interesting.
Several days.
That's
So it's
interesting.
not really
because
a bar bake. It's like it's like not even really a bake because it's so low temperature.
it's almost like just putting a skin on the dough.
It's like dehydrating.
Right.
And I think Brian kind of when we get into yours, and Brian's going to go first. He's going to show us, his method first when we come back. But you noticed the same thing, the idea of a little bit of drying out of the dough and making it ahead so that something happens to the, when you get the skin, pardon me, on the dough. And we'll talk about when we do each of your segments, we'll talk a little bit more about the dough itself, the formula that you've chosen, whether you've modified an existing dough or doing a totally unique dough for this. But Brian, why don't you just for just a minute or two, just tell us quickly about, your observation as you've been really on a kind of an immersion into trying to perfect this style. Almost, I would say, an obsession with this style for the last, couple of months. What are some of your main takeaways?
It heralds back to that '77 moment in San Jose when it's memories. It's I'm not going to go too deep down that road, but yeah, it's like my childhood. And it's something lost right now. It's a beautiful style, but mine's a little different from what Adam is going for, and what maybe other people have experienced. I was going for that, in 1977, I was going to Shakey's and Round Table and Pizza and Pipes. It was different. It was laminated. So, the things that I've had in Chicago and Jersey are very flat and crispy, which is great. I love it. But I think someone found here's my theory. It's a theory. Is that they were using the scraps because they were sheeting everything out on long sheets and cutting them out in cookie cutters. And what are you going to do with all this other dough, right? You start folding it back in on itself, and you're not going to throw it away. They started rolling it back through and going, wow, this is even better. It started giving these like bubbles. We call bubs. And there was it's a pita.
Uh-huh.
You know,
It starts to separate. Yeah.
air
Puff up. Yeah.
separation.
Yeah.
And texturally, it's really important.
Yeah. It totally changes everything because it gives you that flakiness that you were describing. All
Well,
right. Well, this.
you know, when you have air, like, you know, it's like okay, cut a big thick slice of prosciutto versus a thin paper sheet thin of prosciutto,
Right.
Big
Yep.
difference, right? So
In other words, air is the critical ingredient in the flavor experience.
correct.
Yeah. Well, let's stop here for a second because I want to like give us a chance to reload. Brian, you've got to get into your kitchen. You're gonna go ahead and show us and exactly what you were just describing, sort of how you took these ideas of turning the scraps and what that did to the dough into an actual methodology that may be the method if you can keep up with the demand, because it sounds like a little extra work involved on how to make this style of pizza at a Pizza Shoals.
I'm going to charge more.
You charge more. That's how you make it work. Yeah, I hear
It
you.
is more work. You'll see. Like, you know,
Okay, excellent. Well, we're gonna take a break here, folks. We want you to come back for part 2. And by the way, this is going to be an all week exploration of bar style and parlor style pizza. So we're going to be doing a segment with all 3 of our Yodis today, showing us their methodology. We'll be back with Brian Spangler from a Pizza Shoals, showing us how he's sort of synthesized all of these memories, techniques, and all the things he's learned by being in the pizza business into what will soon be the newest menu item at a Pizza Shoals, is bar pizza. We'll see you back in the next segment. Welcome back to Pizza Talk, and this week is dedicated to bar, parlor, tavern style pizza. You name it. It's all, you know, different variations of a theme, and we're going to start with Brian Spangler at our Pizza Shoals, and of course his trusty sidekick Andres, who is going to be both helping and also you'll be the cameraman today for this first segment, right?
Yeah.
So you got a new camera. We're going to try to get really in on this and see it up close. Brian is going to take us through his method, the technique he's kind of come up with through this obsessive quest for the perfect version of a parlor pizza. And so, Brian, take it away and show us how you did it.
All right. So I'm going to hand the computer over to Andres. Follow me.
All right. Well, we see Andres, but okay, there we go. All right. Brian is on his walk through the kitchen, and
If you want, Andres, you can take the camera off this and hold that while I do. So what we're going to do is we're going to laminate the dough.
so when you say laminate, basically we think of things like croissants and Danish. Is that similar technique?
Yeah, so we're going to run the dough. This dough has been fermented in bulk for like 2 hours yesterday, and then refrigerated overnight.
So I've got to ask you this because it's the first question that comes to my mind. Is it the same dough that you use at Shoals for your regular pizza, or is it a different dough?
This is 48% hydration, like very minimal.
I see.
Thing.
So a much denser, stiffer dough.
Yeah, with you know, it's got dried milk powder and lard in here.
And lard is, of course, one of the secret ingredients. And why did you choose lard instead of, say, shortening or even oil?
Well, they don't make shortening anymore, really.
Not the way we grew up with it. Yeah,
No. Like,
yeah.
Yeah, there's that's all dead.
So lard is really like the original shortening.
Right. So it gives you that nice, like, you know, like think making the perfect pie crust, right?
Yeah.
So this is very short mix. This is 6 minutes in a mixer. With, you know, the last few minutes going into you know, the last 2 minutes is the shortening going in.
I see.
The first 2 minutes is everything but salt. After 2 minutes, salt, and then after 2 minutes thereafter, the lard, and then 2 minutes thereafter, we just shut it down.
So basically, you're holding back the salt and the lard in order to promote hydration of the dough, and then you put the salt in to tighten the dough, and then you put the lard in because that if you put that in too early, it'll get in the way of gluten development. So you're
Correct.
so you're staging it in order to be able to have a short mix but get maximum functionality.
Correct. Yeah, because you want to have the you want to hydrate all the flour, right? You get all the enzymatic activity and all the packages activated. Then we add salt, and then after 2 minutes we add the salt, and then after 2 minutes thereafter we add the lard at the very end. And so it's a very short mix. It's really rough, choppy. You can see this has been 2-hour ferment at bulk at room temperature and then overnight. So look at this.
Yeah.
It's very choppy. It's like a biscuit. It's kind of a biscuity.
It looks like a biscuit dough, yeah. But then, of course, you're going to start to fold it so it'll develop a little bit more.
Well, now, thanks to my good boy Andres here, we're gonna pat it down, start running it through the sheeter.
So at a lot of places where they obviously are not going to have a sheeter, like many bars are not going to have a sheeter, they would probably use a rolling pin, right?
So that's the first run, right?
Yeah.
Then you keep adding flour on top of it. That's got plenty of flour. I'm leaning more on that side. Go through another pass. All right.
Now the lamination
Kind of like
begins.
holding it in on itself.
Yeah. So that flour in between, in a way, kind of helps to promote that separation later on, I would think.
Right.
Okay. So first lamination, you've got a threefold. You're going to run it through again, force those layers together, but with the addition of that flour to kind of make it so that it does want to separate.
Yeah. So just keep running through this. It's actually it's actually a lot of work.
I know this is why, the next phase of this for you is going to be to figure out how to make it work in a high production operation.
What should I get myself into?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But
It's like-
it's worth the work. It's
Yeah.
when you have the final product. It's fantastic. You'll see the end result.
Well, that's what we're really looking forward to seeing how it all
Sure.
pays off in the end. So how many more of these passes do you go through?
Kind of run through again. Okay.
Yeah.
Then we're gonna
Another
Fold.
fold. All right.
up again. Right.
Okay. Yep.
Andres is much better at this than I am because he used to work in a tortilleria
Ah.
in the Yucatan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like he looks at me and he's like, "What are you doing?"
And why is it taking you so long?
Exactly.
Right.
Look, flojo. ¿Qué pasa, flojo?
So that's going to be one of the secrets of getting this onto your menu is you have to have somebody like Andres who can really crank them out.
No, yeah, exactly. It's the scalability, it's the production.
Yeah.
Of all this stuff. So, and of course, like I'm not using like the massive industrial unit.
Well, when you start to crank out 400 of these a day, you may have to upgrade.
So now it's getting thinner. So we're gonna go to level 8. Get a little thinner.
So you're taking it down to a pretty thin level. How much yeast was there in this? Is less than usual, or the same as in most doughs?
So more because it's 48% hydration.
So you put more yeast in.
Yeah.
Is that what you said? Yeah, because 48% is a pretty stiff, dense dough compared to most pizza doughs would be between 60 and 66 or 68% hydration. All right.
So now we're seeing how it's more flour. Watch this.
All right.
This is where it gets really fun.
Wow. You're passing it through again without a fold now. You're just stretching it out now. Wow. And it keeps on coming. So how thin would you say it is now? About an eighth of an inch?
Eighth of an inch?
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe. And what I didn't bring it up here. I took a piece of PVC or ABS that I rolled this up on and then rolled back through like a tube.
I see. You kind of wrap it around it. Yeah.
I can do it without it, but
yeah. Well, that's how they do it in high productions. Is they have these rollers. The dough rolls up on it, and they kind of books out on the roller, and then they can unspool it.
There we go.
There we go. Wow. So even another pass, you're really getting it thin.
So now we have huge sheet of dough.
Wow. So you how many pizzas you can make a number? It looks like you can make about 10 pizzas from that.
6.
6?
12.
I guess depends on the size.
6 12-inch.
12ers. Okay.
This is not quite the thickness I want it to be. So do one more pass.
Wow.
There you go. Look at that.
Fantastic. It's almost thin enough to be able to see through. It's like strudel dough.
Yeah. So yeah, about 1/8 of an inch thick.
Even less, it looks like. Yeah.
So I'm gonna finish this up later on the flour real well.
Yeah.
We'll because I don't want to waste this stuff because I got the dough ready to go.
Oh, okay. But what would you do? Cut them out with a template into circles?
Yeah. Hold on. Where's hold on.
But basically what he's done is he's rolled out almost like rolling out a phyllo or a strudel dough, super thin, but of course yeasted, and now with the folds, some layers going on, and then he's looking for his cutter. There we go, and he's going to cut circles.
Right.
Yeah.
American Metal Craft makes these things where you just put it down, cut these pieces out.
Got it. All right. And then you would stack them because they're dry enough. You could actually stack them without them sticking to each other.
Yeah, you have to put some flour and some semolina between a little bit.
But that's part of the process is to let them sit for a while.
Yep.
Okay. And then take us to the next phase then because we're going to run out of time.
We're going to stack this up.
Yep. This dough's going to get folded and put away and be cut later because you've already prepped some for us.
Because if I let this sit too long, it's going to be wasted.
Yeah, it'll be dried out, and after all that work, you don't want to waste any of it. You want to turn them all into pizzas. Right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to take this. we'll run this through the sheeter again later. It'll be better. The better, the scraps. I think the scraps is what determined the whole lamination process for like shakies and what have you.
Yeah. I think you mentioned that earlier, that by throwing those scraps in there, it added to the flakiness, the flaky of shaky.
Yep. They realized that, and Brown Table actually became part of their process, where they were like, okay, so we started laminating yesterday's scraps into today's dough.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like the old with the new.
Yeah. Again, it just gets better and better.
Right. So I'm gonna put this away real quick. And now we're gonna make a pizza.
All right.
It's in the other one that's small.
Over there. Thank God I have Andres here. He reminds me of what I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So here we have a skin that was cut out.
All right.
It's been sitting in the refrigerator for 2 days after. So we laminated it, let it sheet out, and cut it.
Will that be part of your method, Brian? Is to actually let it sit for 2 days before you use it?
It seems to be like, I'm still learning. Like, this is my 5th rodeo, so I've been researching this for years, but I've only been doing it for 5 weeks. So
right, and it's so amazing to see the difference between this style and what you typically make your normal style, which is more of a sort of New York, New Haven style pizza that's nice and puffy around the edges and everything else. And this is a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, it's completely different. But I love it. It reminds me of my childhood. It's fucking rad.
So that's what's that? Some thick tomato sauce?
Yeah, that's super dolce from Stanislaus.
Uh-huh.
But it's so thick that I have to use like this offset.
Yeah, it's almost like a paste.
Yeah, exactly. So this has got like 11 different ingredients in it. So I'm using super dolce with a lot of herbs and seasonings. But we want to get this all the way to the edge evenly, so I have to use this offset kind of like spatula, almost like a cake.
Really, it's like you're bringing a lot of other disciplines into the making of this that many pizzerias or pizza makers wouldn't necessarily even have in their skill set.
Right. Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, right. Well, this is what happens when somebody gets obsessed with an idea, and it brings out all sorts of other skills.
When it comes together, it's so rad.
And we got Adam and John watching on and prepping to and get ready to do theirs. But if you guys want to chime in at any point, did either of you go through this same kind of when you were first starting to make this style of pizza before you launched it, the same kind of I don't want to keep using the word obsession, but attention to detail and experimentation and kind of high focus.
I think we probably all went through the same kind of processes, but I took the shortcut and just waited for Brian to do it, and then he told me what to do. And I ripped on that.
That's the big secret. We call that the
original idea in 40 years.
That's why we have mentors that we call Yodas or Yodis that kind of pave the way. How about you, Adam? I mean, you've been thinking about this style for many years. Did you have to kind of go through a process of fine tuning and throwing ideas out and trying different things?
Yeah, I did a lot of work with pans. I basically started chasing this style back in, I'd say, 2014.
Wow, yeah.
Starting at home, I knew I wanted to do a pop-up pizzeria type thing. I was inspired by this guy, Casey Crines, out in San Francisco.
Uh-huh.
Not that guy.
Yeah.
There you guys know.
I love
I was inspired by Casey's pop-up. He started in the back of a bar, pop-up. And I was like, I want to do something like Casey did. And
Interesting.
originally I was thinking like, oh, I'll do some kind of New York, neo New York type style. But then I was like, wait, I really love what Colony Grill is doing and these thin, crispy bar type pizzas.
Yeah,
Why don't I do
yeah.
that? So I started chasing that. And like I said earlier, I wanted to get like a Detroit Frico edge.
Yeah.
So I started playing with all the different pans and eventually hit upon this pan to cook it in.
That's interesting. So we're gonna see that in action in the next segment. But
Yeah.
notice that Brian is not using a pan for his. He's
Yeah.
going right onto the hearth or into the oven
yeah.
from the
Hearth.
peel. So you've got a ton of cheese on there. You really loaded it with cheese. What is it? Is it all mozzarella or is it a blend or what?
No, it's a blend. It's got aged provolone and Tillamook white cheddar. Get that?
Got it.
Yeah.
Tillamook. So of course you're in Oregon, so you've got Tillamook cheese, cheddar, which I love, and I'm sorry.
What I call the KAS. It's a King Arthur special. So
Uh-huh.
a little white onion on top of this. Diced white onion. Little diced bell pepper. Pepperoni, obviously. And then I'm going to put some California black olives.
When you called it a King Arthur special, why did King Arthur? Is it a shout out to the flour company or to a style like a round table style?
Round table.
Round table. Okay.
Got that. And with a mushroom.
So this is like an everything pizza.
Kind of. Dude, it's so classic for this style of pizza.
Yeah, and it's loaded, man. Like that, but that dry dough can stand up to it.
Oh yeah. No, it's glorious. And then I'm gonna hit it with some chili flake and some aged cheese on top of it.
How long does it take to bake?
6 minutes.
So while it's baking, I'm wondering if we could switch over to Adam if he's ready to give him a head start to get his process going, and then we'll cut back to you when the pizza's ready to come out. Unless you have some things in between that you want us to know about.
No.
Would that work for you, Adam? We'll just start right away with you, and then at some point we're going to stop this segment. We're going to take a break and we're going to continue. We're going to do a segment 3 and a segment 4. Usually we just do 2 segments. We're going to do 4. That looks like it's ready to go in the oven, huh?
Oh yeah, she's ready to go.
Did it slide? All right, why don't you go ahead and slide it in? And I'll tell you what we'll do. Let's take a break. Let's come back.
Peter?
Yeah. I'm sorry, what was that?
That's a big joke.
Oh, okay. Brian's putting this pizza in. At what temperature, Brian? About 600?
550.
550. All right, we're going to take a break right here. We're going to come back with a whole new segment, and we're going to jump on Adam's, and then when your pizza's ready to come out, or maybe when we come back, we'll look. It should be coming back out of the oven when we come back for the next segment. We'll look at the pizza first, then we'll jump into Adam's method, and then we'll wrap it up with John's in segment 4. So we'll see 3 different takes on a similar style of pizza. All right, so join us on the next segment, and Adam, you'll be up next, but we'll look at the finished version. So the ultimate tease, you don't get to see the pizza until you come back for the next segment. See you then. Welcome back to Pizza Talk, and we've been promising you the reveal of Brian Spangler's bar pizza or parlor style pizza out of his pizza shoals. And so Brian, that wasn't the pizza. That was just a good leg shot. Let's see let's see the pizza. We've been dying to look at this thing. It was loaded with cheese and all sorts of everything toppings. What's the pizza itself look like now that it's out of the oven?
Okay, Andres is in charge of the camera.
There it is.
Let me see if I can get this here.
Got an awful lot of puff and pop for something that was so thin.
Yep. That's all that lamination process.
Exactly. Well, can you cut a slice out of it so we can see what it looks like, both under crust and maybe how how if any of that lamination shows up in the sides.
Sure. You know what? While I go cut this up, I'm gonna have you do a little interview with Andres, my main man, while I come back in like 5 seconds.
Okay, Andres,
Yes.
thank you for doing the camera work there. We know how much work you're doing behind the scenes. Brian leans on you as his right-hand man. And I know that you've had, this style came to you pretty easy because you've done a lot of work with tortillas, right?
Yeah, I used to work making pita bread and everything.
Pita bread and, yeah, so rolling thin and, you know, working with thin doughs like this kind of comes second nature, huh?
Yeah, it's pretty easy for me because I got all the ideas and everything.
Well, based on how we saw how much work Brian put into making this dough, I don't see any way it's going to make it onto the menu at a Pizza Schultz unless you're the one who's making it, because you can do it like 3 or 4 times faster than he can.
Yeah.
All right, so we're about ready to see a slice of the pizza. Brian said he'd be right back with that slice. And in a second, we're going to go to Adam Kuban out in New York, who's going to make us in your kitchen the Margot's pizza version of the bar pizza, or do you prefer to call it bar pizza or bar style pizza, Adam?
Either way, I call it bar pizza.
Bar pizza, but it keeps it nice and short and easy to say. And then, of course, in the next segment, we'll see John Arena's version, how he's kind of taken, again, some of the work that Brian has been doing, the work that Adam has done, his own childhood memories. We all kind of start and work from that and then try to not only recreate them, but take them to another level, reinvent them, so to speak. So is he almost ready, Andres?
Yeah, it's here.
There he is. Here it comes. All right. So look at that. Right on the edge, right in that cornicion, we've got an incredible separation and air gap, some space. And can you get even closer to the camera? You're right, but without losing focus. All right. So we can see how thin the crust is, and we're not seeing
the lamination works.
Yeah, you can see a little bit of the separation there. So
Yeah.
how does that translate when you take a bite out of it? Do you get the snap? The beautiful caramelization on the bottom.
Cheese crispy.
Yeah. So of course it's all about the combination of flavor, texture, mouthfeel, and a big part of this experience, I think, and what's been driving your obsession with this style is that snap and crackly quality, the shatter quality, so to speak, that's brought about by lamination.
You can sit out for hours on a table and it's good to go. It reheats really well. Like Andres is now showing you like that other cut section right here.
Yeah.
You can see like all these bubbles like over here.
Well, I can see why you've been so excited about doing this style. There's so much going on. There's so much drama in that pizza, and so we're really so grateful for the fact that you've committed so much time and energy to this. I know that if it were not for the pandemic, who would have had time to indulge yet another obsession? But you were able to do this, and hopefully it will show up on the menu once you figure out how to be able to make it. And crank them out, because once you start offering them, it's going to.
I hate to say it, but I don't really hate to say it, but this is my favorite style of pizza on the face of the planet.
There you go. And Adam has been feeling a lot along the same line. So we're going to cut over to Adam now, because he's going to show us his method. And again, you were telling us earlier too that you were saying that right now, because of the pandemic, you're not really even doing the pop-ups. I love it. Brian is showing us the puff that he got in the air, the separation and the air gap. Right there in the edge. So you got that frico that Adam was talking about, that little frico cheese crisp right around the edges. But now we're going to see how Adam gets there in a different way, using a pan to achieve some of the same effect. And Adam, you were saying that also that this pizza can be reheated, and that if you are going to be able to do it as a pick up and take it home thing, you'd have to include instructions that tell people how to bring it back to life and restore that snap.
Yeah, I mean, I usually just throw it right in like a 300-degree oven. Sorry about that noise.
It's okay.
Got racers racing up and down the highway behind our
Hey, This is Zoom world, so we just go with the flow.
Yeah, I just throw it in like a 325 degree oven directly on the rack for about 5 minutes or so.
So it's kind of like what you would do with any pizza you take home from a pizzeria, but you have to bring back the snap. So how do you get it?
So how do I get what?
How do you get the pizza? How do you get to that frico? And if you could take us through the steps, yeah.
Yeah, let's go. You have to tilt my camera down here.
Okay, there we go.
I don't know if you can see that very well. Just got a couple.
Got it. Yeah.
Balls going here.
Sorry about that sound. The Geek Squad is calling my home. My wife's supposed to answer that phone.
So with this, I just roll out with a rolling pin. Now I know somebody mentioned, I think it was you, Peter, you said, a lot of bars might not have sheeters, so they do rolling pins. I would say, like, the places I've been to that do, like, a thin crust style like this, Star does use rolling pins. They have, like, an army of older women. It's always been romanticized. Maybe they're, like, the grandmothers or aunts or whatever. They're out there rolling out their pizza with rolling pins. Then they hand it over to the guys who build the pies onto the pans.
Yeah.
But a lot of the places I've seen use sheeters. And
yeah,
I know we talked about like the difference between parlors and bars being unwelcoming to families. But a lot of the bar places here on the East Coast I've gone to that would be making bar style pizza have basically morphed into pizzerias. I mean, nobody's really going there to drink or to get hammered and watch a game, although there's a little bit of that going on. A lot of them are there primarily for the pizza at this point.
Interesting how that flipped.
Those places are huge, like, so they have enough room in their kitchen. I mean, they've essentially turned into restaurants, so they've got sheeters. One thing I've always told myself is if I ever did this commercially, I would definitely get a sheeter.
Yeah, you'd have to, because you wouldn't be able to keep up with the demand.
No, it takes, like, for the pop-up, I do about 40 of these, and it takes, a good hour and a half, maybe hour and a half to roll out.
Yeah, and even if you worked ahead of time, then you're just spending so much of your day just rolling out the dough.
Well, yeah, it takes like an hour or so, hour and a half to roll out 40. And I put them into these nesting deep dish pans. And the nice thing about those is that there's a little tiny bit of clearance in these. These are Lloyd nesting deep dish pans.
Lloyd, yeah.
SDK.
And Lloyd pans are pans that pretty much any home cook can get now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now that's pretty much why I got them. And these are pre-seasoned, so I didn't have to worry about seasoning them. I've got like 40 of these that I use for the pop-up.
Nice.
But the nice thing is that this dough is so thin that once I get them panned up, there's enough clearance in there that I can just stack them with the dough in there. And then I throw them in the low boy to keep them to retard the rise. But if you keep them out on the counter, they'll rise up a little bit, and you'll get some nice bubbles in there. So here I'm not rolling it out to quite the diameter of the bottom of the pan. That's probably about 11 inches or so. This pan is a 12-inch pan.
I see. So you leave a little space, yeah.
So I do leave a little space to get it to the edge.
And like you said, you don't need to oil that pan because it's glazed, and you don't really even want the oil.
Don't need to oil it, but I'm going to put a little bit of vegetable shortening around the rim. And that's a couple things here. As you see, as I'm stretching, you see it's starting to snap back.
Yeah.
So I use the vegetable shortening, just like a chickpea size or so.
Just enough to kind of grease it, yeah.
Just around the edge. And this does two things. Right now, it's going to act as a paste. It's going to paste that dough on there and prevent it from snapping back. And then I just, whatever little bit I have, I'll just rub it around the middle.
I didn't ask you this, but what's the hydration level of your dough? It looks pretty stiff like Brian's.
So mine is, I call it a 62% effective. I don't know if that makes any sense. but it's let's see, 8% oil and whatever 62 minus 8 is 54
54.
54 water.
I see. So you count the
Because I
water in
feel
the
like
oil, yeah.
The oil, handle once you get the oil in there, it handles
Uh-huh.
effectively like water in there.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're similar to what Brian's doing. What kind of flour do you use?
This right here is just AP, and I'm just using Heckers now because what I could get during the pandemic was Heckers flour.
So that's all-purpose flour, not high gluten flour.
Right.
And how about you, Brian? What kind of flour did you use for yours?
I use Keith Best from Central Miller.
From Central Milling, but which is that's a bread flour, right?
Yeah, it's 50% spring wheat, 50% winter wheat, with a little ascorbic acid. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so I would say that it probably rounds out to be
12.5% protein.
Maybe, 12, between 12 and 13% protein.
All right, let's go back to Adam now. So you just use the docker to dock the dough so that it wouldn't bubble up too much.
Yep. Yeah, the big thing you have with this style when you cook it in the pan, especially if you're cooking a plain cheese pie like I'm about to, is that it has a tendency to bubble up, and sometimes it bubbles up in one big mound. And then, of course, you're not getting any contact with the pan.
Right.
So it's not cooking the dough. And that's going to be an issue with this thing.
So instead of getting blisters, you get a goiter.
Yeah, and not even that, it doesn't cook.
Yeah,
yeah. So, but yeah, here.
So that's a really cool technique that you got the dough to adhere and not shrink back by using that shortening to kind of hold it into place. I love that technique. Yeah.
And so what that does too then is later on it's going to act as a release once it melts, because what I'm going to do here is you'll see I'm going to cheese the edges eventually.
And your sauce is a much thinner sauce than Brian's sauce, which was almost like paste. And you've got it contained in a pan, so that makes so that gives you a little bit more flexibility for that.
Yeah. So this sauce is basically just Sclafani crushed tomatoes, and it's just straight out of the can with some seasonings added. Well, this is here. Usually for the pop-up, I make a more involved sauce. It's actually like a Shakey's inspired sauce. It has some green pepper in the sauce, some shallots, and a lot of seasonings. And I actually found the base version of this on pizzamaking.com.
Yeah.
Now, you said that was about a 12-inch diameter pan, right?
Yes, a 12-inch diameter pan.
And how much did the dough ball weigh?
The dough ball here is 180 grams.
Okay.
Oh.
So fairly thin. Yeah, and then I sauce it. At the pop-up, I use Fattoria Fresca tomatoes. It's the one with the big Jersey Fresh on the label.
Oh, yeah.
And it's essentially, I did some research, Sclafani, which you can get here on the East Coast. I don't know how available it is elsewhere. That's the same stuff. The same company that makes Sclafani.
Oh, interesting.
Who is it? B&G Foods distributes Sclafani and.
Are they using Jersey? Do they use Jersey tomatoes in theirs as well?
Yeah, it's almost like DOP for Jersey. So like the Jersey Fresh symbol is for any product that's grown in Jersey. You get that symbol from the Jersey Department of Agriculture, and you can put it on your labels. It's just like with Fattoria Fresca tomatoes, they put it on there really big, so you almost think that's the brand name.
I think
Joe. I like
pardon me. I think Joe Badia uses the same. He uses those Jersey tomatoes at Pizzeria Badia.
Yeah, I started using it because I was doing my pop-up out of Emily in Brooklyn, Matt Island. He's also one who kind of popularized Detroit-inspired pizza here in New York City at Emmy Squared. But he was using the Jersey Fresh stuff, and then when I was doing the pop-up there, of course, I just like, oh, this works perfectly. And then when I did research, I was like, oh, okay, it's Sclafani, which I was using at home. So, of course,
So you just put a rim of cheese around the perimeter. What kind of cheese is that?
That is cheddar. It's white cheddar.
It's interesting.
Yes.
A lot of the folks who are doing the square pies like to use cheddar around the edge as well for their frico.
Yeah, I found, I mean, like I said, I started doing this process like 2014. I used all sorts of different cheeses on the edge for a couple months. I tried, but it quickly became apparent that white cheddar was the best because when it, it browns. It might get a dark golden brown, but it does not get that black color.
Yeah,
I know a lot
yeah,
of people like a black, like mozzarella color on the edges.
yeah.
And they say, it doesn't taste burned. It's not really burned. I think visually, it doesn't look good to me. It looks burned. So I like that nice dark golden color.
Well, I like the cheddar because it tastes so darn good. I think it's
That's
it's so underappreciated by most people, I think, in general, but certainly in the Italian pizza community, it tends to be frowned upon because it's not an Italian cheese. But to me, it's just like one of the great cheeses in the world. We take it for granted. And of course, Brian, you've got your Tillamook out in the West Coast doing their version of cheddar too. So we've all got, the cheddar is really, I think of it really as an American cheese, although it's probably really English in origin. But it's kind of like our home court cheese, I think.
Yeah. It was weird. Like last week, they called me up and they said, "I've got a 40-pound block of white aged cheddar for you. Come pick it up." I'm like, "Why?"
Nice.
Like,
yeah.
I'm not gonna ask twice, but yeah, I got a 40-pound block in my refrigerator right now.
It's fantastic.
It's
fantastic.
Great.
Oh, now you put more cheese on. What kind of cheese are you putting on now?
So this is something I call Coup Blend. My last name is Kuban.
The Kuban blend, yeah.
Coup Blend is just mozzarella, cheddar, and fontina.
There you go.
I think this
Great
is a
combo.
2 to 1 mozzarella being the 2.
2 and 1 and 1. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I switch it up. I'm not trying to be squirrely here.
Yeah.
I switch it up here and there. I've never hit upon something I really like. Or
You could probably, I suppose,
always experimenting.
I suppose provolone would also work. Maybe even Gouda and some other cheese.
I've used Havarti at times.
Uh-huh.
And
So basically, it's a cheese blend. So now you've got a 3-cheese pizza because you've got your cheddar, your mozzarella, and your fontina.
yeah, it's actually, I don't know if you saw, I sprinkled a little Romano on there too.
Oh, so 4 cheese now. Yeah.
Like I said, I grew up, my dad was always chasing a shaky style type pizza. I'm
Yeah.
going to throw this in the oven now. And
All right. Beautiful.
So I'm just throwing it in a home oven. I'm not going to show you all that stuff.
What temperature, Adam?
It's at 550, and I'm going to set it for 8 minutes on the timer.
Okay. Fantastic. Wow. So again, a great technique, especially for home cooks. I think it's a great technique because you can use a cake pan. Most people, even if you don't have a 12-inch cake pan, you could do a 10-inch or a 9-inch or an 8-inch cake pan version of this, and with some great technique tips with the shortening used to kind of keep that dough from springing back too far in. It holds it right up to the edge, and then a rim of cheddar for that crispy cheese frico, and then whatever else you want on top, right?
Yeah. Well, I picked up the shortening trick from Zane Hunt at Via 313 in Austin.
In Austin,
Via 313, of course, is Detroit style. 313 being the area code of Detroit.
Right.
I really talked to Zane a lot when I was first doing the pop-up and considering doing a permanent location, and he schooled me on on ours we use a little bit of shortening around the edge to keep that snapback from happening. So,
well, thank you, Zane. I've had his pizza at 313, and it's great, fabulous.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Square, Detroit style.
His brother Brandon, they're fantastic guys.
Wow. So, well, why don't we do this? The pizza's in the oven. When we come back, we'll take a little break. We'll come back for our final segment, and we'll have John show us his version. But we'll start by looking at yours when it comes out of the oven. Sound like a plan? All right, folks, join us for the next segment of Pizza Talk. We're going to go into our third version of the pan-style pizza. Adam, thank you so much for sharing that technique. Everyone, keep your eyes out for Margot's pizza, because at some point that pop-up's going to start popping again. And thank you for sort of taking on this in your own way, taking on bringing back this style, because it's almost like the popcorn effect. We're seeing individuals kind of all of a sudden simultaneously, like the zeitgeist is struck, and it's a moment as time has come, and it's only a matter of time before it starts popping like crazy. We'll see you in the next segment of Pizza Talk with the big reveal of Adam's Pizza, and then we'll see John Arena's version as he's going to eventually introduce it at Metro. See you soon. All right, welcome back for the final round of our bar parlor tavern style pizza extravaganza. Adam, in the last segment, has put his pizza in the oven. It's out now, but it's not finished. So, Adam, tell us how you're going to finish it up before we send it over to John for his version.
Yeah, so I threw this in the oven, which is in the home oven, at 550, baked about 8 minutes. Now it's just to the point where it's set. Like, I can transfer it. And I like a lot of the East Coast bar pizzas I've seen, you pull it from the pan, and then you just flash it on the hearth of the oven. So I'm going to do that here.
And in your case, your hearth you're actually going to use a pita-style, right, for your hearth?
Yeah, I've got a bacon steel going in there. For
Great,
this, it might be a little bit of overkill, because you got to watch it really closely that it doesn't burn.
Right.
See, it's pretty floppy as is.
Yeah.
I use this oversized cookie spatula to get it out. But now I'm just going to launch it onto the baking steel.
Onto the steel. And so steel instead of a stone, but you could use a baking stone if you have that. We had Andres Logston on Pizza Talk a while back, and he kind of gave us the ins and outs of the baking steel, which we love because it's such a cool tool. And so you got it in for maybe only a minute, and the minute's going to be that minute or two will give it the crisp and the snap that we're looking for, right?
The crisp, the color, like the texture.
Yep.
So I'm gonna go check it.
Well, let's hang with you on this until we get it out, because you're so close, and we want to see the finished version. And Adam is, of course, was doing the pop-ups of Margot's at a couple of different places, and as it continues to fine-tune his method. You were just telling me that you've been places where you had a wood-fired. You had to do the whole thing in a wood-fired oven. And how did you deal with that?
Originally at Emily in Brooklyn, they have a wood-fired oven. And now there's the space I had available to me. I was like, I'm going to make this work. So we tried cooking it entirely in the wood-fired oven, first in the pan and then flashing it. But it was a real pain in the ass to do it on in the pan, because they take up a lot more room than, say, just like a regular Neapolitan or neo-Neapolitan style would.
Yep.
So we ended up hitting upon just using the regular commercial kitchen oven, and we throw those in right on the rack and cook them for about 8 minutes, and then pull them just like you saw,
and then finish them up in the wood fire.
Yep, and finish them in the wood fired.
Look at that.
We do pretty low. We do a pretty low flame on the wood-fired oven, if any flame at all.
Right, we're not talking about
600.
Yeah, it's not. This is not your 900-degree Neapolitan.
No.
But there it is. Look,
primarily.
And you can even see from this angle that incredible frico around the edge from the cheddar cheese that you put around the rim of the pan. And what do you just adding a little salt and pepper there, or what?
Yeah, I finished with pepper, and let me grab it if I've got it. Yeah.
Looks good.
You had mentioned that you used even a little Romano in the cheese blend. Do you you don't need was it Romano? It could be Parmesan. It could be some kind of dried cheese, right?
Yeah, it really depends for me. Here I just use Romano. I don't use the Romano in the cheese blend though.
You do it as a separate. That's right. You just do it as a sprinkle. Yeah.
I sauce it, cheddar the rim, and then sprinkle Romano, and then I hit it with the coup blend, and then a little bit of olive oil, and into the oven it goes.
And there it is. And now it's ready to eat. And you cut it in squares? Or you cut it in
No.
wedges?
I cut it into wedges.
Wedges.
I know.
all right.
This is the thing. I'm kind of superstitious about this. I know somebody. Was it Nate Appleman? Was
Oh,
that-
yeah. Yeah, I know Nate.
He opened a place, Polino's, and he's from Milwaukee, and he's used to the tavern cut. So
Yeah.
he cut it into squares, and the New York Food Press
I
was like, "What is that?"
know. I was there. I went to Paulina's when he first opened, and it was like,
I watched that, and I said, I am not going to cut my pizza into tavern cut.
What about you, Brian? Do you do wedges or squares?
I like triangles, man. I just can't get into I'm from the Midwest. I'm from Detroit. And I just can't get into that party cut. It just doesn't make sense for me.
So you cut them like Adam does it. You're going to be serving it.
Yeah. So I cut my 12,
slices.
if it's larger than 12 inches, it's getting cut into 12 triangles, right? It's about like.
Oh wow.
I like triangles.
So you're not actually cutting slices like he's doing. How do you do a triangle? When you say triangle, what do you mean?
Well, it's like a classic pizza cut, right?
Oh, yeah, classic. Like, okay. So now you're just putting some fresh basil. Looks like a little tribute to DeFaro's there. Cutting the herb right with the scissors at the moment of service.
And if I had it, well, you know what I might do?
Tom DeMarco comes back.
And for even more DeFara, got my little.
Right.
This is a 24-month aged parm.
Now we got Romano and parm in there. All right. So now we got some garnishing happening, and the flavors start to pop. The visuals pop, and then you've got that snap in the crust. And there is Adam Kuban's beautiful. Wow, really nice undercrust. Look at that, and close up. See how thin that is. Even with the rolling pin, without the sheeter, you're able to keep it thin. And how about the edge? Do you see any? Your stays pretty flat around the edge. It doesn't really puff much, right?
No, it doesn't.
Yeah. But the cheese fills in and gives it sort of that little border area. And so we've got our frico. We got all the elements of a classic, beautiful, in a sense, updated bar pizza.
Beautiful.
So with that also, Adam, thank you so much for doing that for us and showing us your method. This pizza, your pizza, is going to be featured as one of many pizzas in the new Pizza Quest book that will be coming out next year. And we'll be doing 35 tribute pizzas from the various guests that we've had on Pizza Talk. We'll have Brian's pizzas in there. We'll have John Arena's pizzas in there, and many others. So those who are watching, keep an eye out for that. And we'll recapitulate some of these techniques that Adam has shown us today. But let me see. I think we've lost John. Did we lose John Arena? He's going to show us his method. What is that? Oh, there's your little bubbling.
Mr. Bub.
Yes, that's when I can get those. I'm so happy.
And
that's why I do the whole lamination thing.
Yeah.
what I remember from my childhood when you get those bubs is that the bubs would actually char, and they would start to break. And when I would go with my dad and brothers and all to our pizza parlor, I would always be the one that would grab the slices with the biggest bubbles.
Yeah.
All right, John. Sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I toured Domino's HQ once. They let us make a pizza, and I'm not gonna get in anything or denigrate anybody, but they put the pizza through the impinger. Bubbles were forming like that, and they have a special tool, of course, to open the side.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, don't."
Right.
So when mine went through and the bubbles came, I was like, "Do not pop them."
Let them go. Yeah. Well, I know that. I understand why they would do that, because 9 out of 10 people will love it, but then there'll be that one person who just freaks out and they say, "You burned my pizza," Right. So I get it. But John, we're gonna switch over to you now in Vegas, and you're gonna show us, your sort of, I'm gonna call it the consolidation of everything that we've been talking about into the metro version of a bar pizza.
Right, which my version is always a consolidation of my memories, whatever I can steal from Brian Spangler. and also an application of our production concerns, because we're feeding 18,000 people a week.
Yeah.
So, you know, there are methods that may not work for me that work for other people. And when, you know, if I were making every pizza, there might be a certain way that I would do it that would be a little bit different than what I have to do commercially.
Of course.
So what I do is I try to think about, how do I hack this? What's my end goal and how do I get there? So in our conversation with Brian, we talked about that beautiful lamination. And he had a method of getting to it that's, you know, you could see the result. It looks amazing. But I was thinking, okay, how do I get that lamination? And then during our discussions, we talked about pita. And it occurred to me that basically what we could do is create a pita, flash bake it so that it puffs up, and then let it cool completely down before we compress it. And we would have that separation, which ends up.
Interesting. So you do a blind bake, basically, just the dough itself. Okay.
Right.
So my dough was about 52% hydration, 5% lard. Because there's a little lower hydration, I lower my salt. I'm usually at about 2.5. I went to 2. Okay. And I know that those old doughs that we remember usually had sugar in them, and I'm usually not an advocate of sugar, but the sugar was there, so I went 1% sugar. Okay.
Well, just 1%, just a little bit of sugar.
And normally I do 0.5 yeast. I went to 0.6.
So a little bit more of the yeast, like Brian did. Let me just ask Adam a real quick question. Adam, what kind of fat did you use in your dough? Did you use shortening in your dough?
I use shortening this time. I play around with it, but yeah, this I use shortening and give me a really nice effect here. It's very supple, actually.
Yeah. Okay. So most of you, the choice is usually some kind of a hard fat, a shortening, whether it's lard or Crisco, or of course, as Brian pointed out, Crisco is a totally different formula than the Crisco that we grew up with, which was much more hydrogenated. Now it's less hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated, so it doesn't have the same function.
Hydrogenated at all anymore.
It's more of and so it's softer, but you know, there's trade-offs and everything. But if you want to stick with the solid fat, then lard is probably your best choice.
Lard.
And leaf lard in particular, which is like the highest quality of all. And so you use lard in yours as well, John, right?
I do, because I like lard. But when I'm doing this, when we introduce,
I would probably use bacon fat.
Right. When I introduce this into the pizzeria, naturally I can't use lard because that cuts out a lot of people that don't eat pork products.
Oh well.
Right.
Go back to shortening for that, but you know, for us.
Well, for today, yeah. For our benchmark versions.
Right. Okay.
So you got you've done a pre-bake basically. You created a pita effect with separation, and then you turned it into a pizza. Whoop, we've got a frozen screen from John. Every once in a while, John will just stare at the screen, and it's not really frozen. But this time, I think we have gotten a little zoom lock here, so we'll wait for it to unlock. And while it's unlocking, we'll have Jeff, our producer, shoot them a note, a text, letting him know that the screen is frozen because he's probably moved on in his description. We'll get him to recreate that. Adam, I know that you've got some appointments, and you may have to drop out at some point before we finish. But just in case, is there anything that we didn't get to cover with you that you wanted to tell us about your method?
I could talk about this for like hours, but no.
I know one thing we didn't get to do was you got to take a bite while we were talking to John. And what was that bite like?
Oh, it's fantastic. It was normally I'm usually disappointed with my pizza because I think any pizza maker will tell you there's always room to improve. But this one I was happy with. I mean, I obviously could see places where I could have improved on it, but I was happy with the amount of sauce, the amount of cheese. The cheese was crisp. I mean, there were crispy parts of the cheese, but there was some nice cheese pull. You know, the blend, the fontina really helps with that stringiness.
Yeah.
But then one thing I was really really inspired by a Colony grill, is I love, if you look at it, it's pockmarked, and that's because of the cheddar. So the cheddar, when it gets hot, the oils break from the cheddar and they bubble up through it and create this little pockmarked thing going on. The problem with that is you get too much cheddar in the mix, then you get all pockmarking and it's plasticky.
I think that's what the technique that Justin De Leon does at Apollonia's Pizzeria in LA, where he's become famous on Instagram for his crown pizza, which is that frico that kind of rises way above, and it's totally pockmarked. It's kind of like one of those cookies that that's all what do they call these, the flaky cookies?
Oh,
but
yeah.
I want to say Florentine, but
you want to know how you
Florentine, I think it is, yeah. But anyway, so part of that texture, I see John is back. So John, we lost you there at some point. He's adjusting his camera to get us back in the game over there at Metro Pizza. While Adam, looks like you're getting ready to make another. So you got the effect you were looking for by doing the double bake. You bake it first in the pan, finish it off on a hearth, on a stone or a steel, and then you get that great caramelization on the underskirt of the pizza, as well as the crispness around the frico edge.
Yes.
Right. That's my idea. Let me just adjust my camera.
All right, we're back with you. Yeah, and
I'm also, of course, I'm thinking about how do I turn these out in bulk? How do I make a lot of them and make it as easy on my pizza line as, there's only so much Chris Decker can do.
Chris, of course, is your right hand man, as well as a star in his own right in the pizza world. He is like what Andres will be for Brian when you turn him loose at the next Pizza Expo and let him start competing against some of the big guys. We can't wait to see what how he rises in his own right. But everybody needs an Andres or a Chris or anyone in the pizza world. Always starts bringing a team together that allows you to continue to be creative and not have it all be on your shoulders.
Well, also the leader being creative, that inspires the people behind you, right? So
yeah,
you have to lead the way and keep them inspired, to keep them motivated to continue to do what they do. It's like,
right.
They feed off that. So when I'm like doing this shit,
yeah,
Andres is like, "What are we doing?"
Yeah, right.
And then he eats it, and he's like, "Oh, this is really good."
And he's just added something new to his repertoire as a result.
Yeah, like the calzones. He's
well,
like,
I think
I don't really like calzones, and like, we'll try this one. He's like, good, bro.
Exactly, and I think that for both of you, one of the greatest joys you'll have in life is when your proteges surpass you and are doing things that even you didn't think of.
Oh yeah, I know he's gonna totally beat me up.
Well, John, we're back to you now. You've got your pizza. Let's go ahead and put your pizza together.
Okay, so I'm going to roll that dough out so it looks like this.
Uh-huh.
All right, you can see it's very thin, about 1/4 of an inch.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And I'm going to pop it in the oven.
So you're power baking it.
I've seen some Sardinian style pizzas which is done like this, where you create that that pita effect, and you've actually bake a pita, essentially a type of pita bread, and then turn it into a pizza. Yeah. And even Mario Batali, back when he was first opening Otto in New York, his original concept was to make them on a griddle and then finish them under the broiler by having them pop up and puff, and he was attributing that to the Sardinian sort of method of that.
Sardinian.
The parchment
paper dough.
Yeah, the parchment dough. Yeah, and so in a way you're kind of playing off of that, which is kind of neat, because I was wondering if anybody would start to do that in their operations, is create a pita type pizza. it's in there for a minute or two, and it's going to puff, and then you're going to end up getting a finished pita, which is that what you have in front of you now? Is when it's already gone through this process?
Right, that's what this is.
Okay.
As
And
you
then
can see, it's separated. I let
Yeah.
it cool down, and I let it cool down before I pressed it down, because I didn't want, if you don't let it cool down, they just combine again because they're still,
right, still doughy.
I let
Yeah,
it wait. Okay,
So he's going to pull that one out and show us. The camera's not catching it, but we'll catch it when it comes to the bench. There we go. Oh, there we go. Got a pita bread, basically. Puff, big, full of air, full of hot, steamy air that if you were to break it and puff it right now, you'd get a steam burn. So he's going to let that kind of gradually dissipate. And when it falls, and that'll finish off also the gelatinization of the starches so it doesn't stick back together again later.
Right.
So
yeah, that's
another
what I
way
was
of
trying
getting
to say.
layers.
Yeah.
I love the idea that there's 3 different ways that we've just explored, and there are probably dozens of different ways to get to kind of a great finished pizza. But these are 3 that we've looked at today that are just fresh approaches to each style.
Right, and I think you always have to adapt to the tools that you have at hand. Like Adam said, he had to adapt to the wood burning oven.
Right.
You should be able to, if you're a professional, if you're serious about your craft, you adapt to what's there and you adapt to what the conditions are.
Right.
And that's why some of these guys that are cooking on food trucks right now are doing pop-ups. They're going to end up being amazing pizza makers.
Right.
Those places are all about adaptation.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Trial by fire, literally.
Well, and in this case, you could make these pre-baked pita puffs, so to speak. You could line them up and have them done way ahead before you even open, and then you can and then just keep up with the demand when the orders come in.
Yep.
All right. So how would you assemble it then?
So here's my sauce, which
kind of like Brian's, so much thicker.
Much like Brian.
Uh-huh.
I start with super dolce as a base.
Yep.
And then I go with the 11 herbs and spices, like the Colonel.
Yeah.
There's olive oil, thyme, oregano, salt, black pepper, white pepper, and granulated garlic.
Uh-huh.
Which I don't use granulated garlic for many things, but this pizza, if you think about what those sauces tasted like, and back in the day in those types of pizzerias, or those types of taverns, there was always some granulated garlic thrown in there by the handful.
I like it. I like what it does to a sauce too. And the nice thing is you can use fresh garlic, but some people say, "Well, I don't want to use fresh garlic," but the granulated garlic has a whole different effect.
It does. And you want to, for this type of pizza, you want to use a thicker sauce. The pizza is thin to begin with, so what happens is when the pizza is that thin, and there's a thin sauce, the sauce can really break down and get kind of soupy. And also, characteristic of these pizzas when I was growing up, especially if you went to a Shakey's or a Round Table, you noticed that the cheese was really white. And it was not only because there was a lot of cheese on it, but also because that sauce was thick and the cheese didn't break down as much.
I see.
So you'll see that we're going to get it. So again, the theme of everything that we've done over the last several months, Peter, is Brian and we're aiming for the same thing, but we just, we get there by a different route.
Right. I love it. And that's because you're each bringing a lifetime of experience, of different experiences, to the target. And we get to be the beneficiaries of that because we can cherry pick the various concepts and ideas that you've come up with. So that really spreads, and like Brian was spreading his with like an icing spatula practically, and you're using just the back of a spoon. It looks like.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. There we go.
Okay, now I'm going to use. I'm going to put some Romano on the cheese. On the sauce.
Well, there's Adam's trick right there, Romano.
I'm going to crush a little oregano on my fingertips.
Little chili flake.
I'm not using chili. because
You did. You
my-
did
my
use. You
memory
did
is-
use some fresh. You did use some oregano. Did you say? Did you put that
I
on?
did. I used some
Okay.
fresh, some dry oregano, which I like
Right.
to, I
Uh huh.
like to always crush that in my fingertips as I
And
apply
that's
it.
is that before the cheese? You put that on?
I did. I'm actually going to put it on again.
Okay, double it up. Okay,
One,
and then you.
one is for the flavor of the sauce, and the other is for the fragrance of the pizza when it comes out of the oven.
Got it.
I put it on top of the cheese as well.
So, what kind of cheese are you using now?
I'm using straight whole milk mozzarella.
Total nuts. I like the fact that it's that you're well. Of course, I think most pizzerias do it. Was the whole milk as opposed to the low fat, which is too rubbery.
Yeah, that tastes good.
Fat tastes good. Exactly. Yeah.
Like the part skim? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, the part skim, which I think
I
is
don't really understand why anybody uses that.
no. I mean, you can't. The two can't compare. I think people switched it because they didn't want the oil puddling and pooling at the top. But
Because you're baking it too long.
well, because it
Right.
separates out. Yeah.
Right, or your oven's not the oven heat's not balanced, and you got too much top heat.
Yeah,
Cheese
Uh-huh.
is breaking down.
I say
No,
that's
but-
releasing the oil.
Right.
whole milk
No.
all day long.
It's funny. People will buy this beautiful cheese from Wisconsin with amazing butterfat content.
Yeah.
And they blend it with a part skim cheese to
Yeah.
knock it down to where a mediocre cheese would be anyway.
Right.
Oh, let's remember, it's always about flavor. Flavor rules. So
That's
You
a
know,
flavor rule.
yeah, it's the flavor rule, and you can make trade-offs, by lowering the fat or this or that. But in the end, you got to really ask yourself, what is it that's going to bring you back time and time again for that slice?
Okay, so now I'm gonna top this with sausage, but what I'm using is what I call cup and char sausage. The way the
Oh.
cup and char pepperoni has been so
Yeah.
big.
Yeah.
So what I do is I boil the sausage, and then I let it cool completely down. I chill it, and then I slice it real thin, and then I roast it in the oven. So I don't know if you can see this, but
So this has already been pre-cooked and slightly charred already.
right
That's with the casing?
with the casing.
Good.
Interesting. So you boil
Yeah,
it.
just like the pepperoni has casing on it.
Right. It should.
So you boil it first, which is interesting. Does that to get rid of some of the fat?
Because I don't want to have to roast it for too long.
Oh, I see. So it kind of sets it
Because
and firms it up.
get roasted. It's going to
Yeah.
get roasted again in the oven now. Okay, and now I'm going to add some roasted red peppers, which are just seasoned with olive oil, garlic, parsley, and salt.
What kind of peppers are those?
They're just red peppers, just sweet red peppers.
Bell peppers?
Yeah. We've been talking so much about shakies. I'm the guy in the room that's qualified to imitate shakies because my hands are shaking already.
Yeah, but you've been making pizzas for a long, long time, John.
Okay, so here it goes.
All
This
right.
might be my last one right here.
That's the
You never
ultimate
know.
bar pizza now. But this is a whole different technique. So this is on a pre-baked pita-like pizza dough. And how long do you think it will take to bake?
It'll take about 5 minutes.
Because you don't have to worry about baking the crust. It's already baked. It's just going to
Right.
brown out. But it's just melting the
Right.
cheese now. And you don't want the
Right.
cheese to get golden brown. You want it to be kind of more on the whitish side, the ivory side.
Exactly. But I'm not afraid to let it really cook. To me,
Right.
the contrast between lightly cooked and medium cooked and burnt, dark, caramelized, I like that.
Uh-huh.
To me, culinary fascism is the enemy.
Right.
It's like this idea of everything having to be exactly uniform and look like a cookie cutter. It doesn't bother me if the pizza has got, like Adam was talking about popping those bubbles. What are you making? Wonder Bread?
Right.
When he went to Domino's and they popped the bubbles. We want those bubbles there. The bubbles taste good. Fat tastes good. Contrast tastes good.
Contrast.
All
I
my
think-
breads, I want all of my pizzas to go from GBD to black.
GBD is what?
Golden brown delicious.
A golden brown delicious. I say, and you're pushing it all the way to black. So you
Well,
know, and I always say that
you want to have all the, if you're doing it right, your fermentation levels right and your baking process right, you're gonna have anything that goes from like a light GBD, golden brown delicious, to like mahogany to black. It's it's a combination of everything in between, and that's my biggest problem when I started off 20 years ago was everybody said everything that I did was burnt. And I'm like, no, it's not burnt. Does it taste burnt? Does it taste acrid? No.
Yeah.
Okay. So.
But that's because you started out as a bread baker trying to do the bien cuit loaves, where you really want to push in the European model, push for caramelization and not the American style of sort of light, not even golden brown delicious, but light brown not even delicious.
Yeah, well, Chad Robertson and Craig Ponsford and even yourself, and then I worked with one of your good friends, Tim
Decker.
Yeah. I worked with Tim Decker for 2 months, and it really changed my perspective on where it was.
Right.
Right. If you think of what those breads were like at Sullivan Street Bakery, that's another example. They were
exactly.
really
Pushing for flavor, always pushing for flavor.
Right.
Steve Sullivan, what?
No, Sullivan Street, New York.
Oh.
That was Jim Leahy.
Oh, Jim Leahy. I've yet to meet him.
He's brilliant.
Yeah. I'm
so
one degree of separation away from that guy.
It's your next trip to New York. We'll get you together with him.
Yeah.
So John, you've got one in the oven. Meanwhile, Adam you've been making more pizzas as we've been talking, right? You've been rolling some out. It looks like. Oh.
I mean, I'm still good to stay here, but like after this, I have to go pick up my daughter from school, and
I know.
she knows I'm doing this. So,
did I see you in the background making another pizza while we were talking?
Making a pepperoni pizza for her.
Pepperoni pizza for her. Oh, and your daughter is Margot, right?
Margot.
My daughter's Margot.
That's, of course, Margot's Pizza. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what you saw earlier was a Margarita. That's why I got hit with the basil.
Margarita. Love it. Love it. Well, I think John's pizza is about ready to come out.
Mine will be out in a second, but talking about caramelization, this is a pizza that Chris Decker made earlier.
Wow.
And that golden brown delicious combined with some burnt. It's exactly what Brian was talking about.
Perfect.
And it was made on one of these pre-baked pita type crusts.
No, this was made on our regular dough.
Regular
We're
dough.
shooting
Okay.
We're shooting for the same aesthetic and the same philosophy.
I see. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, don't sacrifice one element for the whole.
Yeah.
But you have an end game, but like sometimes like when I tell my employees like, yeah, that should have been in the oven a little, another 30 seconds, because it would have
Right.
It would have improved the whole product.
Yeah.
And then they're pointing at then they're like, yeah, but the crust, because they start focusing on the crust and how the colorization is. I'm like, look at the cheese; it's starting to dry out. Don't sacrifice the whole for one element. You have to we're thinking about the whole balance of all of it. And every day is not the same.
My staff jokes that I could be easily replaced by a recording that says "Put the pizza back in the oven."
Yeah, exactly. And I can relate to that because my students always used to say that about the breads.
30 seconds longer.
My students would always want to pull their breads out, at a certain point. And I go, no. All right. So, John, the pizza is now out of the oven. Sorry, we got interrupted in the Zoom, but we're back now. The pizza's on. Now look at that. We were talking about the contrast of color, pushing that crust and get that edge like golden brown. And we've seen everything. The cheese is still on the lighter side, which is what you were shooting for. but your sausage is now is caramelized because you pre-cooked it. Now we got Brian with his slice, and he's doing he's got he's got the separation going in his. You got your separation by pre-baking the crust. Brian got it by doing lamination, and then Adam is back with us, and he's got his version, which was baked in a pan to really get that amazing edge, the Frico edge. Amazing 3 different techniques for getting to a quote bar, tavern, parlor pizza. Thin crust, lots of cheese, lots of flavor, lots of snap, all the check boxes going in, and that's why we're sort of predicting here that this style could be the next big thing. Everyone always wants to know what's
good.
next.
This is my favorite thing,
When are we
dude.
going to run out of things? Now we got, probably. I'm going to guess that in a couple of years, Brian will have a chain of pizza parlors out there. Never. What about now? Now, one thing I ask one final question before we call it a day, and that is, doesn't this style, since it like the way that Adam, recristed his on the stone and the steel and the thinness of the crust, wouldn't this style lend itself to a frozen version, a frozen pizza? Could it work as a frozen product?
I've already tested it.
And
It works.
Yeah.
so
Works great.
so this could be an opportunity in the frozen sector for a whole new category of
I just
bar
talked
style.
to Craig Ponsford the other day about.
And Craig is a famous artisan baker that all of us know. And what did he say?
He's totally down. He thinks it's a great idea.
And of course, Craig's version would be 100% whole
And
wheat.
he's got all the contacts, right? Like, this is the thing. He's got the contacts. I don't have the contacts.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
but
I imagine we'll be seeing
it
this.
treats it really well, right? If you get a production run of this stuff, and it's just like yeah.
Well, the thing is,
all the grocery stores, the high-end grocery stores, like put them in, like what Roberta started, and now you have even we've got Bianco doing it.
through Goldbelly, they're all sending out frozen pizzas. So basically, what we're talking about here, as opposed to most frozen pizzas, are dough that's maybe or maybe not baked, but the cheese, everything is unbaked, and it goes in for about 12 minutes. We're talking about baking the pizza, then flash freezing it, and then having people crisp it up in the oven. Right? Is that the style?
Well, I think this style of pizza could work just on being completely frozen altogether.
Unbaked as an unbaked pizza, and then bake it all in one shot in the oven. So it could go either way. Well,
To be determined, right?
Well, when it hits the shelves, you'll know that you heard it first here on Pizza Talk. We are with the Pizza Yodis today, John Arena, Brian Spengler. We've added Adam Kuban, our newest Yodi. Adam, thank you so much for joining us. By the way, thank you also for all the great writing you've done over the years. You were really a major force, I think, in helping sort of spur the literary fascination with pizza, and the passion that people felt like they had a voice out there that was saying what they were thinking. And so I want to thank you for all of that work as well. We talked with Ed Levine on one of our earlier shows, and he shouted you out as well as being a major force in all this. So thank you for that. Good luck with Margot's. Can't wait for you to get those pop-ups going again. Thank Margot for giving this a name. And John, thank you so much for your new technique. I don't know when and if it'll show up at as you work out the logistics for making it part of Metro Pizza. But again, those of you, when you're in the Las Vegas area, there are 5, 6. Are all 5 or 6 in your locations open during the pandemic, or are they waiting for things to change?
Everything's open except for the airport.
Just at the airport. So a number of locations of Metro Pizza where you can celebrate all these different styles. And then we've got Andres and Brian at Pizza Shoals in Portland, Oregon. Andres, thank you so much for being part of this today. We're going to be tracking your career. Brian is going to be going to be taking you to new heights once we can all get together again at whether it's at Vegas or if some of the various pizza shows.
I'll bring it to Vegas.
We'll all get together in person when that happens. But in the meantime, all of you keep coming back to Pizza Talk. We're keeping the conversation going every week with postings. The pizza luminaries across the country and across the world are joining us, and we will see you on the next episode of Pizza Talk. Again, thank you, Brian. Thank you, Adam. And thank you, John. See you all soon.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. Brian,
Love you.
great to see you, buddy.
Love you.
man. Talk to you
Love
soon.
you,
Great to
love
see
you all, guys.
Love you all.
Peace.
Bye-bye.